everyone. Welcome to It's Your Money. I'm Joanne Morgano, and I'm joined with my favorite and only co-host, Martin Salzman. Today, we're going to talk to you about the commercial and residential transactional law space. But before we get started and introduce our beautiful guests, we are going to talk about the market.
Beautiful guests is right.
Yes, yeah.
We'll hold our viewers in suspense.
Okay.
So look, let's talk about the markets. We have gyrations like crazy going on out there. We've had a relatively tough week after the government shutdown ended, okay? It seemed like we were okay during the shutdown. As soon as the shutdown ended, all of a sudden, tech stocks started taking on
Some
water.
profit takers.
Profit takers, to say the least, and it kind of broke a lot of graphs and charts. So today's a critical day because NVIDIA announces after the close, and based on how they do, you know, that could sway, let's say, the rest of the AIs and techs and things of that sort. Also, we have December coming, and in December, that's going to be the last Fed meeting of the year. What's your feeling?
I think there's going to be a cut.
You do?
I do. What do you think?
It's 50-50.
All right.
Because where it was thought there was going to be a cut after already having 2 rate cuts, all of a sudden, a lot of these Fed heads, these Fed governors started coming out and saying, well, you know, we didn't have the data because the government shut down. We didn't have the data. And, well, inflation, you know, some of the costs are higher out there in the
Yeah, I
supermarket.
can see why you would say it could go 50-50.
And the labor market is really having some struggles. So I think we need the cut. I know the administration wants a cut like yesterday. You know, they have all kinds of adjectives they call Federal Chairman Powell.
You know, I'm just so optimistic all the time.
You are.
I am.
You are.
I am.
You're
But, you know,
upbeat.
this whole sell-off, we saw it coming. We just didn't know when because the market was so high.
Yeah.
And so, you know, we positioned our clients to take some of those gains. And for weeks, we were saying, let's take 20, 30%. And, you know, we were able to do that successfully for our clients. So I'm happy about that.
I want to just, I don't know if we said this on a prior show, but just to give our viewers some perspective, okay? AI is in the first or second inning. I mean, it's just starting, and people are just starting to see what it can do. But the AI-driven companies, they're acting like they're in the 8th inning or 9th inning. They're priced, or were priced for perfection. So, you know, the same kind of thing happened during the internet bubble back in 1999, 2000. We know what happened there. These are overvalued companies, but there's so much money going into the space, and there's always new announcements, new developments every day. It just keeps going until the music stops, and then what, you know? So there was a haircut in the last 4 or 5 trading days, and now we'll see what happens after we see the NVIDIA news. And
But it wasn't major. It wasn't like big
major,
drops.
you know. Look, a diversified portfolio is what you need. If you have 100% on the on red, what's going to happen if black comes out on, you know, the roulette wheel? So I think you do need to spread your risk out amongst multiple industries, especially if you're investing for growth, you know.
Yeah, and that brings up the topic of an end-of-year review, financial review, or at least in the beginning of the year.
Yeah.
So it's very important to go over your portfolio. And I find that people are more in the mindset to do this in January.
It's so interesting you say that people are interested in January, and I've tried to train my clients to talk to me in October, and the reason for that is if you have gains in your portfolio, and let's say we also have a couple of laggards, underperformers, let's make the sale and offset capital gains
with tax loss
in
harvesting.
October or November. If we wait to December, those companies are going to end up being even lower. And if we use the 31-day wash rule, we can buy back something that we took a loss on the 31st day and get back into the company, hopefully at a much lower price. So it just seems like you got to take more action earlier and sit down with your financial professional and just let them know if there's been changes in your life. If you might get married in the future, if you went through a divorce, or what's going on with your children? Are they close to going to college? Review the 529 plans, if you will. You don't need any surprises when you're within a year or two of your kid going to school. So it's so important to engage, be engaged in your portfolio.
Right, and definitely be responsible and accountable for it.
Absolutely. So, look, I don't want to take too much more time, and I think it's appropriate to introduce our special guest, Bonnie Wright. So Bonnie Wright's here with us, and she's one of the partners of Hanlon, Niemann, and Wright, okay? And she's been in the law field for quite some time. Her expertise is in transactional, commercial and residential real estate, among some other things as well, and we're going to touch on that. Welcome to the set of It's Your Money, Bonnie, and why don't you do this for our viewers? Tell us a little bit about yourself. Why did you get into the law?
I cannot really remember a time that I did not want to be a lawyer, and I knew it from probably the time that I understood what a lawyer was. At the time, it was the opportunity to argue and fight with people, because I was a little bit much when I was younger. But as I got older, I just knew that was where I wanted to be. And I went to law school later in life, but once I finished, it was, I knew I was where I wanted to be.
I saw you were a Seton Hall graduate,
Yes,
right? So
yes.
New Jersey.
Yes, absolutely.
Very nice.
Yeah.
So what's the case that stands out the most to you in your profession?
It's really because I am primarily transactional, again, residential and commercial. We could talk a little bit about that, but I also do estate litigation and guardianships, and there's so many different, very briefly, I have an estate litigation case right now where my clients are the children of the decedent. The new wife, literally within a minute of him dying, went online and changed his beneficiary designation to her.
Wow.
Yeah. And that literally, I just got the subpoena response yesterday. So when I tell you, it's hard to say because there are so many interesting things that I come across in the course of a day.
Yeah.
So my clients were confident it happened. I didn't believe it.
How can you trace that? Like,
Huh?
how can you trace that? You can trace it.
I subpoenaed the institution that maintained
Right.
the 401k.
You know what
great.
they say, money's the root of all evil.
It really is.
The guy's a minute from his last breath, and already they're changing the beneficiaries and everything. Well, that's pretty ugly. How about the state of New Jersey? How have things changed or evolved here in the way you practice on a daily basis? Anything interesting there?
I think, I don't know that it's interesting, but again, obviously COVID and, there's a lot of now a lot of people are at home in the business. Sellers don't go to closings anymore. So it used to be everybody gathered in a room. That really rarely happens these days. It's also interesting that it's very difficult to get a lot of attorneys on the phone, and I feel like that has also come over time and potentially as a result of COVID, because they're very used to being on the computer all the time, but they don't want to engage.
What about courts? I mean, we see that a lot of law is litigated online as opposed to you going to court, unless it was a criminal case, I guess, right? Where you can have family court and issues like that done from your office.
Right. A lot of the things that are still via Zoom are motion hearings, case management conferences, that type of thing. Trials are still in person.
I see.
And it depends on the court, because some counties and some divisions of the court insist in person. Others prefer the Zoom. So you never know. I will tell you, the Zoom is very from a cost-saving measure for our clients, because they don't have to pay for us to travel there.
Yeah.
They don't have to pay for us to wait
Yes,
there.
I can see
so
that.
that is absolutely a benefit to the clients.
So we've got a couple different spaces for you. Let's go
got
into
a
the
lot
real
going on.
estate.
Real estate, that's big, yeah.
How does your role differ in residential versus commercial transactional real estate?
Well, with commercial, residential, the transaction is determined. The clients come to you. Most of the terms have already been worked out. You're really working on things that are just making sure that it's more protective of the client.
Okay.
Commercial, you're involved almost from day one. You're much more involved in the negotiation of the deal, how it's going to play out, how it's going to be financed, what are going to be the terms, is it an asset purchase, is it going to be a stock purchase. So the client is early on much more in need of you than they are with the residential, because the residential, they generally have the benefit of a very good, capable realtor.
In general, what should individuals or couples be looking out for? What pitfalls should they be looking out for? And this is where a professional comes in like yourself. What are some of the things that you see that people make that are mistakes before they...
You mean in the residential context?
Yeah.
Well, as I said, find yourself a really good, knowledgeable realtor, one that's really focused on helping you find a home that is right for you, and not just to get the transaction to the closing table. But it's a super hard market right now. It's very different. Even the last 6 to 8 months, everything has been so different. But buyers, it's still really low inventory, so buyers will put up with substantially more than they should. The property can be in really bad condition, and they'll say, I don't care, because they really want a home. And I think people have to take a step back and really focus on this, because generally speaking, you're making an investment that's going to be your home for the rest of your life.
What's easier for you, working for the seller or a buyer?
Oh, I don't know that I could characterize either one of them as early.
That's going to cut half of her market. Then she picks one.
No, I didn't know if one was just easier to deal with. That's what I'm trying to say.
No, I mean, as I said, the last 6 to 8 months, the market has, for a while, during COVID, after COVID,
it was a seller's
They were
market.
actually easy, because it was so difficult to get a house that it just went.
It was a seller's market.
It's still a seller's market, although it's slowed a little. But buyers are now getting more finicky, and they should be. So the negotiations, getting them from beginning to the end, it's definitely hard.
Yeah, and the high interest rates discourage a lot of people too. They just were out of the game, and it's really those people that had the cash deals, and now you have issues with cash without contingency. So that's a lot. We've seen the shifts.
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to start talking.
No, we want you to talk.
Faster than you.
Yeah.
One of the things that came out of COVID most is purchase contingencies. So I'll sell you my house, but only if I buy a house, which is really difficult, because you have to tell your buyer, if I'm representing the buyer, that, hey, they might give you this house, but hey, they may not. And you're going to spend your money on doing your home inspections and on your appraisal and your homeowner's insurance and getting all of that in line, and then if the seller doesn't find a place to go, sorry, no house for you. So that's a newer thing that has not been going on for the 20 plus years I've been doing this.
Yeah, well, thank you for pointing that out.
I was going to say, let's say that I'm a realtor and I just had a client sign a contract for the purchase of somebody that's selling, right? How important is the review process that the attorney goes through on that contract? Because you're representing, in this case, let's say you're representing the buyer. Okay, and now all of a sudden I hand you a real estate contract. I email it to you and for your review. And how many days do you have?
All right, it's interesting that you asked, and I'm glad you brought it up. In New Jersey, you have the right for an attorney to review the contract within 3 days after it's signed. So my clients will call me. I'll be like, I'm putting an offer, or I'm accepting an offer. I'm like, okay, just sign it, because I can change anything, everything, or cancel. So if you like the general terms, sign it. When it gets to me, then we're going to take care of the logistical part, making sure the timing is right, making sure the inspections are provided. We can do all of that. And if it doesn't work out, or you change your mind, and unfortunately, if you get a better offer, they can cut your buyer loose. Like, it's not infrequent that we go in to attorney review on a Friday afternoon, but we don't conclude. By Monday, we come in and the seller has accepted another offer and kicks you to the curb. It's just the way that it goes. So the one other thing, the 3-day period runs from the time it gets into the hand of the attorney. So a lot of people are like, you have to get done within 3 days. That's not the way it works.
Is
you
it
have to get
business
started.
days?
It's business days.
Okay.
But one of the attorneys has to send a letter. Once that letter goes, the 3 days is off the table. It takes as long as it takes.
Well, so let's shift a little bit, because I want to cover as many topics as possible. Estate planning. What documents should everyone have for their estate plan?
Let's
start with basic, however you want to do it.
I mean, just start by saying that I get a lot of, hey, Bonnie, I would like a trust, please. And I say, why do you want a trust? And they say, because TikTok told me. So you need to meet with a lawyer. But everyone should have a will. Everyone should have a healthcare directive or a living will, whichever the terminology you prefer, and a power of attorney. And sometimes I think the power of attorney is more important, because if you have a typical family, as both of you do, you're married, you have your joint children, God forbid if one of you dies, or the second of you to die, your money, your stuff is going where you want it to. It's only where you have children from prior marriage that things get a little hairy. But the power of attorney, God forbid, again, you said it indicated, that, with your husband, that if he's not feeling well and you want to be able to do things for him, without the benefit of the power of attorney, you're not going to be able to do that. So it's really important to have that. Very important. I should also say, probate in New Jersey is so simple. Everybody's like, I got to avoid probate. It's like a 10-day process, and you're done. You're ready to go.
And that's what a trust would do. It would avoid probate.
It would.
But it's more expensive, and there's the exclusion amounts.
Great point.
Much more expensive. And that's a lot of the reason I get. Why did you want the trust? Well, to avoid probate. You don't need to avoid probate.
And people think trusts avoid taxes too, and it doesn't.
No.
Can you talk about, I know you have an expertise in guardianship and incapacity. I want to just delve into that, but we have to take a commercial break.
Sure.
We're going to be back with Bonnie Wright on It's Your Money with Joanne and Martin. We'll be right back with you.
I love that we both got an awesome network and save money doing it.
I know, $25. I love that it's guaranteed for 3 years.
Hey, we're sitting on a sign here.
Switch and get Welcome Unlimited for $25 a line, guaranteed for 3 years. Verizon.
Welcome back to It's Your Money with Joanne and Martin. We have a great guest today, Bonnie Wright of Hanlon, Niemann, and Wright. And she has been giving our viewers a pretty good education about all different facets of transactional real estate. So when we left off, we were talking about guardianships and incapacity. Is that an area where a trust might be applicable? You have a child that might have Down syndrome, they turn 18, something happens to the parents, now what?
Absolutely. That's definitely planning that is recommended for parents of a kid with a disability. They can create a supplemental needs trust, and it will allow them to be taken care of for their life, but also not disqualify them for any public benefits. And that's the main reason that people do that. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, as far as guardians, if someone appoints a guardian for their child, how does the court monitor it? Or
Well, anytime someone's appointed as a guardian, you have reporting obligations.
Okay.
They're annual, and
Okay.
you have to. It's a report of the well-being, how they're doing, and of the money.
okay,
That's it. It's not complicated. The one thing I did want to circle back to that is the power of attorney, because guardianships are common in the context of a disabled child turning 18, but they're actually even more common in the context of an older person. And you can avoid the expense of that with the power of attorney. So I can't stress enough how important that document is.
And you know, when we were off camera for a bit, you were talking about inheritance and how if you're linear, explain
Yes.
that versus, you know, going off to the side. Just tell our viewers about, you know, inheritance tax and, you know, mainly if you're leaving money to a daughter, a son, things
So
like that.
in New Jersey, there are no longer estate taxes. They were disposed of in 2018. And so now if you leave your money to Class A beneficiaries, and Class A beneficiaries are your children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, parent, grandparent, great-grandparent. So anyone up and down the line. That's how I explain it to my clients. No tax. The minute you go sideways, and that's to your sibling, that's to your niece, your friend, whoever you want to take care of, your cat, whoever it is, because they are not Class A beneficiaries, there is inheritance taxes, and it's graded. So for instance, if you leave to a sibling, it's 11% tax, the first $25,000 is exempt, and so on and so forth.
I see.
So again, and there's no real planning around that. If you want to give someone who is not a Class A beneficiary money, there is going to be an inheritance tax that is due and payable, but there is no estate tax in New Jersey anymore.
Got it. That's great. Thank you for that.
all right. So let's shift with another part of your expertise in commercial transactions. What are some of the key legal considerations if you want to buy or sell a commercial property?
I think, I do both, the commercial real property and businesses. For business purchases, the key consideration is, am I going to buy your assets or am I going to buy your business? So that's just very simply, if you're buying a pizzeria, I'm going to buy all of your assets, your equipment, your ovens, your furnishings, your goodwill, your name, right? And by doing that, you avoid the liability of buying the company because you don't know if the owner was paying his taxes, you don't know if there was someone injured and potentially there's a lawsuit coming. Anytime you buy the actual business, the LLC or the corporation, you're taking on the seller's liability. When you buy the assets, you're taking on none of their liability.
Interesting.
So that is one of them, and explaining that, by the way, making the clients really appreciate it, because you can buy the assets and the name can be included, so they get confused. Am I buying the company? No.
Yeah.
So that's one of the main considerations.
So, you know, for our viewers, you know, this is why you need a professional, because you don't want to step into something and say, he has a nice business, they own a car wash, and all of a sudden you buy this car wash, you buy the whole business, now you're buying all the problems associated with the business, as opposed to buying, let's say, the equipment and things like that. People like Bonnie, you have to consult with a professional. You can't just go willy-nilly and think, I'm going to buy something.
So what's some of your advice to clients that are that want to buy joint ventures or partnerships that are involved in those deals,
Again,
types of deals?
Any lawyer is going to try to get you to make you reconsider actually purchasing the entity. They will ask, they're going to recommend that you buy the assets of it. So, however, if you're forming a joint venture or a partnership, it is all in the agreement. And again, so if the two of you were going to form a business and you wanted me to prepare that agreement for you, I can prepare it, but you have to be independently represented. I can't represent both of you in negotiating that agreement.
So that's if you have a partnership.
100,
Okay,
any,
or a
whether it's
joint
an
venture.
operating agreement,
Okay, right.
shareholder agreement, you name it.
Yeah, I get that.
The parties have to be independently represented.
Okay.
We have to jump. We're going to guardianships, all right?
Okay.
What's the difference, if you could tell our viewers, between a transaction for a property versus, say, an individual? Am I wording it correctly?
I'm not sure because you're asking me
saying
about
that
guardianship.
The difference between a guardian, let's say, of a property, let's do it that way. The difference between a guardian of
Okay.
a property versus a
guardian of a
person.
person.
I understand what you're
All
saying.
right.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, so if the guardian for the property, and they will frequently refer to it as the estate, makes all financial decisions, whether it's how you spend your Social Security income, what you buy, across the board, all financial. The guardian of the person is medical decisions, residential decisions. So, for instance, if they're going to be in a facility, they would be the one deciding where the facility is going to go. Most commonly, someone is the plenary guardian, which is of both. But there are situations, as you're suggesting, where there is one entity or person serving as the guardian of the estate and one for the property.
How do the courts determine when a person is incapacitated? What kind of information do you need to provide?
You cannot file, or at least you can't have someone declared incapacitated without two doctors to certify that that person is unable to manage their own affairs. I mean,
What
that's
type
the
of
primary
doctors are
criteria.
they?
I mean, again, it's
General
medical.
practitioner?
It could. Frequently neurologists, but it theoretically could even be your foot doctor as long as they're an MD.
Wow.
Generally, a foot doctor is not going to sign that certification, but it could, under the rules, they could be.
Are there other alternatives that families should consider when it comes to guardianships?
Especially when we're talking about a guardianship of an older person.
Okay.
As I said, the power of attorney. Every single day, all day. Get the power of attorney, because then you don't have to go through that process. You don't have to have them evaluated. You don't have to pay the court-appointed attorney when you file the guardianship. I mean, a guardianship, even on the least expensive level, is going to run you somewhere around $4,000, $4,500 unopposed, with nobody objecting. Power of attorney is going to maybe cost you $500 at most.
Yeah. Now, power of attorney, is there a difference between the durable versus just the power of attorney?
Or springing?
No. Well, I mean, there are, but
Right.
I wanted to talk about the guardianship really quick on that point. The only difference between being appointed a guardian and using a power of attorney is that if the person who signed the power of attorney could undo your decisions. A guardian, they cannot.
I see.
They have the final word.
Okay.
Interesting.
So there are a lot of scammers out there. How do you handle cases of undue influence? Because I saw one case today actually in my practice.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
It is so tough, and getting. I have a case right now where the brother was watching the grandmother and has gone off to the financial advisor to start changing accounts, and ultimately, and she hasn't been declared incapacitated, so the client came to me, the person who was her power of attorney, and we had to file an emergent application to the court for a temporary guardian. Just to oversee what's happening, so we have time to go through the rest of the process,
Right.
which is to get the doctor's certifications and all of that. It happens so frequently.
It really does.
Yeah, it's sad.
And that
If
was
we,
what,
if we go over to estate litigation, that's another thing. Because,
Yes.
look, we're an aging population. We all have families that are, we see members of the family getting older. What seems to be, let's say, what leads to the most litigation that you see when it comes to estate matters?
Well, the changes in the wills. You get much less litigation out of an administration, which is no will, because it goes by intestacy.
Right.
But if they have a will, and they've had prior wills that are inconsistent with the most recent will, that is what how the litigation evolves. Because they're like, I was in this will before, and now I'm not, and you unduly influenced my mother to change the will and leave me out. And it's off and running.
So timing can also be a big factor. If these changes occur so close to a person's death, they're going to look at that with a jaundiced eye. you
Well,
know.
that, and then you also have a lack of capacity. So the two bases to challenge a will are undue influence, which is you made me do something I otherwise would not have done, but for your influence.
Right.
But also lack of capacity. I genuinely did not know what I was doing. I did not understand it.
So Bonnie, look, we got to have you back.
Yeah, there's so
We
too
have
much.
a lot more things we
lot.
wanted to
It's a
talk
lot.
to you about, but it's like quick with Bonnie,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
We ran around the world in 80 days in about a half an hour.
Yeah,
did.
so,
So
you
anyway,
have-
do us a favor. Can you tell us where our viewers can reach you?
I will. Yeah, the firm name is Hanlon, Niemann, and Wright. We're in Freehold, New Jersey. Our website is hnwlaw.com.
And what about just the phone number?
quick
Oh,
number.
yeah, good point. 732-863-9900.
Yeah, well, thank you, Bonnie. We
did a
enjoyed
great
having
job.
you. You
So
did a
much for
great job,
having
and
me.
we
This is
definitely will
great.
have you back. We've
Definitely.
got
Appreciate it.
too
Great
many
job.
questions that were left unanswered.
Yeah, well, listen, thank you again for joining us on It's Your Money with Joanne and Martin. We'll see you next time.